Welcome again, everybody. I'm gonna talk again about my Ecoflow Delta Pro Ultra, but I'm gonna go a little differently this time. I'm gonna go into the decisions as to what made me get this, why I did this, and how I arrived at some of the conclusions that I did. Maybe that'll help some of you. The other question that I'll answer at the end of the video is, well, whether or not I like to upgrade to the new DPU-X. So we'll go from here. So anyway, the reason that I got it was to back up the pets. I also had given it a thought and want backup for my garage door opener, the sump pump here, dehumidifier. One other thing is that in the 20 some years that I've lived here, my power outages have been very few and far between. Like, it's single digits. The longest that I'd ever been out was 24 hours. Okay, so knowing that, we're like, okay, we want to try to survive 24 hours for something. Okay, so that's where I got that information. The other bit of information that was really handy was like up here. You see, this is my amp meter. This was really helpful information to know, was that you take this, you clamp this around the wires, and then it'll read the amperes that you're using. Obviously, all you got to do is multiply the amps times the voltage. You'll get the watts. Knowing that the Ecoflow Delta Pro Ultra is 7,200 watt, it is a 30 amp solar generator. An electrician that I had talked to a few years ago when he was building our building, because I told him, let's see if we can get a good image of this. It's a little dark. I told him that I only had 100 amp electric service, and I thought, you know, based on those load calculations with the paper and such, that I need, you know, more than 100 amp. And that's where the top breaker says 100. And he said, no, an average house only pulls about 30 amps. And I wasn't so sure about that, so I had the clamp on amp meter. I clamped the loads around the main. It was during the summer, and I read 13 amps on one leg, 16 amps on the other. So that tells me that yes, 30 amps, perfect. So now all that remained was like, well, okay, how much do I need? And my calculations were, I'm gonna need at least 2 batteries, you know, 12 kilowatts, because of my electric bills. I was able to calculate it. Once I got the unit, I know it a little bit better. And having that slight power outage and knowing that this went out while it was running on batteries and was still able to make us through until the power was restored for the rest of the house, that this told me, you know, I probably should get a couple more batteries. So I doubled the capacity. And that is one thing that I really like about this, because like a portable generator, whole house, like my mom's got the Generac, for example, she can only use it for a power outage. But she was getting a few more power outages there in her neighborhood than we get here. So yeah, and then the other thing is that even though like each battery is like 100 some pounds, and the inverter, this piece right here, is like 70 some pounds, it can be moved. So that we can take this with us, should we ever move. I don't know if you saw it or not, but I get an additional like 400 watts to have the furnace fan run on high. So I'm getting like 1.6 kilowatts. And then something else just kicked on for a moment there. Maybe the sump pump or something briefly. But yeah, you can kind of see the load. I also alternate here. I mentioned in a previous video about the The generator port, if I had that plugged in and operational, you would be getting this exact output on the input. It matches it, and it also depends on the mode. I was using self-powered. It just did that. In fact, when we went on vacation, I just left that thing plugged in. Housekeeper was there, and she was fine with that. I mean, what does she know? Everything's just running. If there's a power outage happen to be, we wouldn't have any issues with it. But other thing I wanted to talk to you guys about was I turned off the self-powered mode. In the app, I switched it just to the normal. You can see it on my phone here. I switched it to the self-app mode, or sorry, not even self-powered. It was just the normal mode, and just plugged it in. There was a winter storm coming. Self-powered, it'll leave all batteries at 30%, and that 30% for 4 batteries was only about enough for probably 4 or 5 hours that I would have. But any additional power, it would get up to like 40-some%, but being that it's the winter months, the solar is not pulling in much at all. You can see I'm only pulling in like 45 watts right now, solar. I have some more solar powers that I'm gonna, solar panels that I'm going to install in whenever it gets nice and I can handle getting it out there onto the roof of the pergola. So I plan on doing that. So yeah, this says that it has 3 days of battery time remaining, but if you actually were to count, 2 kilowatts times 87% of 6.1 times 4, 24, 25 kilowatt hours remaining, it's probably more around like a day, maybe like 18 hours worth. And in a previous video I mentioned that if that were to happen, we would start shutting off lights down here for the reptiles and such. Just leave the heaters on, leave the pumps on for the aquarium, and just kind of go minimal. I would also take the furnace fan. We keep it running 24/7. So I mean, we're talking like my electric bills are like a couple $100 a month, even at 16.4 kilowatt hours, I think is what I read what it is. It's a little bit more in the summer, like 18 and 21, depending on the peak and that. Savings data says like most I've saved is like $1.50 a day. It's still something. I mean, it adds up. I've saved over $100, even though, yeah, I spent this much. Anyway, that's how I arrived at this. And as for the DPU-X, hey, I'm not even pulling 30 amps, so I don't see that that's going to be advantageous to me. Maybe somebody else who has an electric well pump and some other electric appliances and a lot bigger house than me, that would come in handy, or just to have that extra capacity. But I could also add another DPU-X. But in this case, yeah, I don't see a need to do it because I have the space here for this. It's out of the way down here in the laundry room, and yeah, I hope that's been informative for you because you can see how I arrived at this decision, and I can take it with me, and I can scale it. I can add panels to it periodically until I get everything that this has for maximum.